when I was preparing for today's for the shiur, so I intended to begin with a quote, and then I checked to see if it was an accurate quote, and it's not. Its inaccuracy turned out to be one of the themes, or the main theme that I want to speak about. Talking about Aliya in Parashat Shelach. So I thought I would begin with the famous quote of Chazal, She'eretz Yisrael gvoha mikol ha'aratzot, which is appended to places where it says you should go up to Eretz Yisrael. And I assumed, or actually remembered, which is less significant than it was when I was younger, but I assumed I remembered that Rashi says it someplace in the Parsha, because the Parashat Shelach, as we will see, is replete with references to La'alot to Eretz Yisrael. And then I started looking and couldn't find it. So I did what I learned to do in the last few years, and I asked the CD of the Projekt, and Rashi in Sefer Bamidbar does not mention those words, Eretz gvoha mikol ha'aratzot. This is less surprising than perhaps would be apparent, since the quote is taken, it's found in a number of places in Chazal, but the original place is in the Sifri, and the Sifri doesn't mention it in Parashat Shelach. Interestingly enough, the Sifri does have it in Parashat Hashavu, in Parashat Dvarim, where there's a short reference to Parashat HaMagalim, to the subject of the spies. And there, the Sifri does have this quote, Mikan. From something written in the Parsha, it says, from here we learn that Eretz Yisrael is higher, is more elevated than any other place. But interesting, and Rashi in fact quotes it in Parashat, in Dvarim, the same place where the Sifri exists. But the Sifri is very interesting as to when it says it. In Parashat Dvarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu repeats the story of the Meraglim, so you have the following statement. This is Dvarim, Perek Aleph. The Jews. The story is different than the story in Parashat Shelach. That's not my topic. The number of contradictions, people have spoken about it. But it says that the Jews came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said that they want to send Meraglim. Moshe Rabbeinu agreed. פסוק חב"ד, ותקרבון אלי כולכם, ותאמרו נשלחה אנשים לפנינו, ויחפרו לנו את הארץ, וישירו אותנו לדבר, את הדרך אשר נעלה בה, ואת הערים אשר נעבור עליהן, וייטב מעיני הדבר. And Moshe Rabbeinu took these people, and then it says, vayifnu, the spies Moshe Rabbeinu had appointed, pasuk chav dalet, vayifnu vaya'alu hahara, vayavo nachal eshkol, vayiraglu ota. On that pasuk where it says that they turned and went up to the mountain, there's no Sifri and there's no Rashi. The next pasuk says, "Vayikchu v'yadam mipri haaretz vayoridu eleinu." They collected the fruits of the land, and they came down to us. Us is the people in the desert. They were coming to on the word vayoridu, and they came down. They brought down. The Sifri says, "Mikan she'eretz Yisrael gvoha mikol ha'aratzot," and so does Rashi follow as well? Mikan she'eretz Yisrael gvoha mikol ha'aratzot. So not only is the statement not found at all in Parashat Shelach, where, as we shall see, the word vaya'alu appears 8, 9, 10, or 12 times, I lost count, in a Parsha where you have two sentences, they went up to Eretz Yisrael and they came down from Eretz Yisrael, the Sifri's comment is only on the coming down. And that's when I realized that, aside from, other than being disappointed and not finding the quote, it's actually a wonderful thing that the quote is not found in the Parsha, because this indicates, my main point is that going up to Eretz Yisrael in Parashat Shelach and many other places we shall see could not be the source for the statement that Eretz Yisrael is gvoha mikol ha'aratzot, because going up does not mean going up, which is what I want to speak about. Going down, on the other hand, does mean going down, and therefore the Sifri drew the conclusion. The statement that Eretz Yisrael gvoha mikol ha'aratzot, we all know isn't true. So it's a geographical statement without doubt, but it's not meant to be taken 100% literally. My point is that other places where it says Aliyah, it's not meant at all to mean that. Here it does mean, when Chazal say Ezra Bick, they do mean that it's high. But they don't mean it literally. And the indication of that, first of all, we all know it's not true. There are countries in the world that are geographically at a higher altitude than Eretz Israel. I say that knowing that I'm standing on one of the highest places in Eretz Israel. We're now exactly at 975 meters above sea level. There is a point in Neve Daniel not far from here which is 10 meters higher, and a point in Givat HaChasin, and that's about it. But nonetheless, 970 meters is not exactly the roof of the world. And even if you chose to say, well, maybe it's only in the Middle East, but we all know that it's not the highest point in the Middle East either. For those who have had the opportunity to visit Lebanon or even Ramat HaGolan, the Hermon, they know that there are higher places in Eretz Israel. But even more important than that, Chazal couldn't possibly have meant it, since another version of the Sifri, which appears in Parashat Shoftim, where it says, V'kamta va'alita el hamakom, asher yivchar Hashem, talking about going up to Yerushalayim, the Sifri says, Mikan, v'kamta va'alita, you should get up and arise and ascend to the place where God has chosen. Sifri says, Mikan she'eretz Yisrael gvura mikol haratzot, v'Yushalayim gvura mi'eretz Yisrael. The statement that Yerushalayim is the highest point in Eretz Yisrael is against verses in Tanakh, Yerushalayim harim saviv la, and it's also against the halacha, because Chazal learned from the pasuk ubein ktefav shachen that the mikdash of Yerushalayim is on the shoulders of the area and not on the head. Yerushalayim is deliberately not on the highest point, even in Ezor Yerushalayim, and surely not in Eretz Israel. So the statement is always meant not exactly literally, but nonetheless, I still think it's more or less meant to be geographic. And my point is that Parashat Shelach, it's not meant to be geographic at all, and I want to know what it means. If we look in the Parsha, I'm just going to list a number of occasions and sort of see them in context. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu to send meraglim. פרק י"ג פסוק א', וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, שלח לך אנשים ויתורו את ארץ כנען, אשר אני נותן לבני ישראל. I'm not even going to try to translate the word v'yaturu. Let's just treat it as a technical word. It means, it doesn't mean la'alot. It does not mean to go up. V'yaturu means to visit, to travel, to visit, in some sense. More or less, as its best English translation, but it sounds too good to be true, it means to tour. V'yaturu et eretz Canaan. That's what God told Moshe Rabbeinu to send people to do. After listing their names, the pasuk summarizes the 12 names. Pasuk Tet Zayin. Eile shmot anashim asher shalach Moshe latur et haaretz. And these are the names of the people who Moshe Rabbeinu sent latur et haaretz. Vayikra Moshe Yoshua ben Nun Yoshua. And the next pasuk says what he said to them. Now, if these are the people, God said send people to latur. Then it says, and these are the 12 people who are going to be sent latur. And then Moshe called them together and said to them to Vayishlach otam Moshe latur et eretz Canaan. These are the people who Moshe Rabbeinu chose to latur, and he sent them latur. Vayomer alehem alu ze b'negev alitem et ahar. In one pasuk, two occurrences of the word. Obviously, if these are the people Moshe Rabbeinu sent to visit Eretz Yisrael, and he said to them, go visit Eretz Yisrael. These are the people Moshe Rabbeinu appointed to visit Eretz Yisrael, and he said to them, alu b'negev va'alitem et ahar. Already at this point, alitem et ahar, there are probably people in the room, not unsurprisingly, who might think that if you're talking about a mountain, it makes sense to say you should go up the mountain. I don't think that's true, but it definitely has a certain plausibility, namely because it's technically correct. But if in one pasuk you say alu b'negev va'alitem et ahar, it's like making fun of that explanation. Okay, you go up the mountain. Before you go up the mountain, go up some other place which isn't a mountain. There are people in the room who are going to say, no, the Negev also has mountains. But that's not what it says. It says, go to the Negev and then go to the mountain, go up to the Negev and then go up to the mountain. I didn't even check, despite my Yetzer Hara, I did not ask Google whether the average elevation of the area we call the Negev is higher than the average elevation of the Sinai Desert. I don't know what the answer is. I think we're not supposed to know that. It's not that important. Moshe Rabbeinu is not really referring to, it's not that great a difference. It can't be that great a difference. There are mountains in both and there are plains in both. But the expression, alu zeh b'negev va'alitem et ahar, is by the contrast is making us realize that the word Aliyah has a greater context, and especially after we were just told that these are the people who aren't being sent to go up; they're being sent to visit. And then Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, "Go up to the place where you're supposed to visit." The word Aliyah appears over and over and over again in the Parsha. After he tells them where to go, the pasuk beginning Chaf Aleph says what they do: Vaya alu, vaya turu et haaretz. Here the two things are combined. These are the people appointed to visit. Moshe Rabbeinu said to them to go up, and then what did they do? They went up and they visited. Okay, that makes sense. They were smart enough to combine the two verbs. Vayalu vayaturu et haaretz mibatzin rachov davor chamat. Vayalu banegev vayavo ad Hebron b'sham achiman sheshay v'tamar yedei anak. So they also followed the exact instructions. They went up to the land, and they also went up to the Negev. And they continued, and vayashuvu mitur haaretz. They came back from their visit. It doesn't say vayerdu. They came back from their visit. So we know what happens. There's going to be a conflict here based on their report. After describing what they saw, which is actually a positive report, they then begin to point out the difficulties. Efes ki az ha'am, amalek yoshev be'eretz hanegev, etc. And then Kalev realizes that something is going wrong. They haven't really said anything yet, but he can feel it. Pasuk Lamed, Vayahas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe vayomer, Alon na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchal la. This pasuk is so dramatic that it became a slogan for all sorts of, not just Aliyah movements, but anytime you want to get someone to do something great, so you write on a flag and you say, Alon na'aleh. The repetition, of course, indicates that. Kalev says to Am Yisrael, no one has said yet, we're not going to go there, but he realizes something is going on. He says, Alon na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ve'ha'anashim, pasuk lamed aleph, asher alu imo, the people who had gone up with Kalev, amru, lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am ki chazaku mimenu. This is the only time that the spies in their language use the verb la'alot. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them to go up. Kalev says, let's go up. This is the only time where they use the verb. Of course, they use it in the negative. Lo nuchal la'alot. Vayotziu dibat ha'aretz asher taru ota al bnei Yisrael. They then spread the lashon hara of the land which they had taru, which they had visited, by saying, ha'aretz asher avarnu va latur ota, the land that we. Notice we already have met the combined phrase la'alot latur. They say ha'aretz asher avarnu ba, the land that we passed through in order to visit. Eretz ochelet yoshvei b'chol ha'am asher reinu b'tocha anshe midot, and they'll never use the word aliyah again. And there are more examples of the word which we'll get to through the next two prakim, the next parak and a half. You already get the impression that this word aliyah is being used in this parsha in a manner of tension. In other words, you're constantly switching from one word to another. Clearly, Kalev is pushing it, Alon na'aleh, and they say, Lo nuchal la'alot. And then you find that even though Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to la'alot, when they describe what they're doing, they're always saying, Avarnu, Banu. Once they say Banu, once they say Avarnu. I think Avarnu is even a more less dramatic word than Banu. We just sort of pass through on our way to other places. And this continues on throughout the whole Pasha. The question is, what does the word aliyah actually mean in this context? If we look throughout the Torah, so there are a few places, not many, where the word aliyah means to ascend, literally. Not that many, but there are a few places like that. And that's okay, because sometimes words really mean what they told us they mean in first grade. Other than that, you have the following cases. This is the first place, Parashat Shelach is the first place where it says She'olim le'eretz Yisrael. You have many examples beforehand where it says Olim mi'eretz Mitzrayim. God is He who ma'aleh otanu or ma'aleh otam me'eretz Mitzrayim, not necessarily to Eretz Yisrael. For instance, in cases of complaints, of tlunot, in Refidim and Datan v'Avriram, ולמה העליתונו מארץ מצרים להמית אותנו במדבר? We're not talking about going to Israel. We're saying, העלית אותנו from Egypt to come to the desert. And again, I'm getting used to it already. I resisted the urge to ask HaChacham Mikol Adam, Mr. Google, whether the average elevation in the Sinai desert is higher than the average elevation in Egypt. I'm pretty sure it is in this case. Egypt is almost completely on sea level. And the desert has mountains in many places, for instance, Har Sinai, but it's clearly not the pshat. There's no reason why, literally speaking, the mitalonim, the complainers, would say, why did you raise us? They weren't complaining about the altitude. They weren't suffering from a lack of oxygen by being where they were. God has, how do we say this in English? What did God do to us in Egypt? None of us say God raised us out of Egypt. What do we say? He took us out of Egypt. Why is it called very often? Not always, but in most cases in the Torah, when speaking about what God did in Egypt, it says, Ha'eleta, Asher ha'eleta me'eretz Mitzrayim. I'll quote a few other examples because I think they're relevant in the Vim as well. Asher ha'elunu me'eretz Mitzrayim, ani ha'eleti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. What does the word la'alot me'eretz Mitzrayim mean? It means to take out. Why is it called Aliya? If it's not important that you're going up. Another example connected dafka to Egypt, but not in the same context. The first place where Rashi does mention the brothers of Yosef. Yosef, after he has made himself known. You hear me translating from the Hebrew. Yosef elachav. How would one say that in English? Right? He revealed. Thank you very much. I'm not used to talking more than 2 sentences in a row in English. After Yosef has revealed himself to his brothers, he sends them back to Yaakov Avinu with good tidings. Va'ata alu el avi. There is a Rashi that says, Mikan she'erzog boha mikol ha'aratzot. But in the other one, against the Knani. Where the Knani live? It's an important question. We'll talk about it we're going to talk about it in Parashat, in our Parashat, in Parashat Shelach. But they don't necessarily live on the top of the hills. In fact, the pasuk in our parsha says that they live on the coast. Other psukim say they live in the valleys. They actually never live in the hills. They're either in the valleys or on the coast. There's no reason to say miya alelanu if it doesn't mean who will attack. That's what it means. It means miya alelanu. And in case we didn't notice it, it does it 3 or 4 times in the next pasuk. Vayom Hashem Yehuda ya'aleh. It's the only verb used to describe going out to war. What does the word, in fact, aliyah, mean in all of these contexts? Why to such different contexts are they always called aliyah? What does the word aliyah always signify? From the simple explanation of climbing a mountain to all the other examples, it means very simply exertion. It means making an effort, as opposed to the difference between going and going up is that going up you have to overcome something. So obviously gravity is the simplest thing that one has to overcome. But it's used in a more or less metaphorical manner anywhere movement involves overcoming an obstacle. And sometimes it's a purely psychological obstacle, like Eliyahu meeting the shluchim. He doesn't, no one's actually stopping him, but he's heading for a confrontation. And therefore, hu oleh alehem. He's not attacking them, he's attacking them. He's not attacking them physically with arms, as the Plishtim attacked Shimshon, or as Kalev attacked Hebron and Dvir, but he's confronting them. He's coming with determination. He's coming with a goal. He's not wandering. Hu lo tar. It's the exact opposite of the word latur. Latur means to wander about. If you're a spy, so you're going to see everything. You're basically a tourist. You're walking around, as Moshe Rabbeinu says to them. Check here, check there, look over there, see see all the cities, see all the land. That's to wander about. La'alot is, you have a very specific goal. To get to that goal, it's a goal ahead of you, and ahead, which we interpret correctly as being in front, but it always also means above, because that's why it's ahead. It's where you're not yet, and you have to make an effort in order to go. So the word aliyah always refers to not merely the difference in the physical location of where one is before and one is after, but always refers to the amount of effort needed to make that take place, determination, plan, and goal oriented. And once we realize that, that is clearly what is taking place in Parashat Shelach. God says, God's plan is they should go. They should go and visit Etzion and bring back a report, and Moshe Rabbeinu carries that out. And these people are therefore called the people who Moshe Rabbeinu has chosen, Latur et haaretz. But when he speaks to them, he instinctively knows that he has to charge them with the mission. He's not simply sending them, please go to the local makolet and bring me back a cottage cheese. He's saying, go to the foreign, enemy-occupied land, but understand when you're doing it that you are going la'alot. In fact, the first time he says it, he leaves out. He supplants the word latur with the word la'alot. The correct English word is he's giving them a charge. He's giving them a mission. And therefore, that's expressed by the word la'alot. The word la'alot in Parashat Shelach, in my opinion, is primarily, it's describing the journey, but it's primarily a word of psychology and not a word of transportation. It's not geology, it's psychology. He's saying, it doesn't mean to conquer. They're not conquering in the final sense. That'll take place in a few months later. But it is. In other words, go out and from on an individual level, go out and take command, take over. You're beginning the conquest of Eretz Israel, and therefore you are going to la'alot. And what's interesting is that they do it. It says that when they set out, vaya'alu, vayaturu et haaretz. They set out to la'alot. They set out to take charge of where they're going. And it's not necessarily higher. Parts of it will be, parts of it will be lower. Vayaturu et haaretz. Vaya'alu b'negev, which is the first step. Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, Alu b'negev, alu b'har. The first thing they meet, they're in Kadesh Barnea, south of Eretz Israel, south of today's Negev, and the first thing they go is into the Negev. Vaya'alu b'negev, they're still going up. And at some point, when they have to describe later on where they went, they say, Vaya asher banu ba, asher avarnu ba. They themselves have forgotten, they've lost the sense, shehem asukan Aliya, but they've only done havara ubiyah. I suspect that the point at which this takes place, but this cannot be proven, I suspect the point in which the Meraglim lose the sense of purpose and mission is when they meet people. B'negev, you don't meet a lot of people. We know this for two reasons. One is because that's what they themselves concentrate on when they say Ephes, but the land is a wonderful land. Ephes, pasuk kafchet, ki az ha'am ha'yoshev ba'aretz, v'arim b'tzorot gadolot ma'od, v'gam yidei ha'anak ra'inu sham. They say the Ephes, the but, is when the people are very fierce. But even more importantly, or perhaps more dramatically, is an interesting phrase that appears when they refuse to deliver the message that Kalev suggests. Kalev says, Alon na'aleh v'yarashnu ota. Kalev says to them and to all of Am Yisrael, let us go up, let us mount the challenge. And they answer, V'hanashim asher alu imo. As I pointed out, the only place where alu is said about them, V'hanashim asher alu imo, I think that means that they started out to do Aliyah. Amru lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am, which is an unusual phrase. Because if Aliyah technically means to go up, you go up, going up in altitude, so you can say it about the country, but la'alot el ha'am is unusual. It doesn't, even as a metaphor, it seems a little bit off. Lo olim el ha'am, olim el ha'aretz. That's the whole context of Parashat Shelach. So I think here, it's really indicating that the reason why lo nuchal la'alot is because, not because of the height of the mountain of Yerushalayim or of Hebron, but because of the metaphoric height of the people. Lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am. And therefore, I think the Torah actually says they started out okay. Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, "Ta'alu, heim alu, el hanegev," but then they concluded, "Lo nuchal la'alot," and subsequently they can no longer relate to the verb at all, and they will say, Ha'aretz asher avalnu ba laturota, eretz ochlet yoshvei, the land that we transverse, that we pass through. They'll never use the word Aliya again. My point is that the conflict described in Shelach is a conflict of spirit, a conflict of personality. And that's why I would suggest, both in our own usage and what Torah indicates, we refer to this as chet hameraglim. The other complaints of the Jews in the desert, with one exception, which I'll get to, were the Am. The Am, people were thirsty, people were hungry, people might have been despondent, and the sin is called chet ha'egel, chet mei meriva. There's a topic, a real topic, which is in conflict between Moshe Rabbeinu and the people, and they're not doing well, and Moshe Rabbeinu is doing better. We call this chet hameraglim. I think one of the reasons is, pay attention to the fact that the Torah lists 12 names. And it's really irrelevant. There's no reason why we need to know the names of these people. They're not significant. They're kulam rashei shvatim. They're all leaders, but they're not the leaders that have mentioned anyplace else. They weren't the leaders who did the census in the beginning of Bamidbar, who are mentioned by name. They're not the leaders who will give out Eretz Yisrael in the end of the 40 years in Parashat Pinchas 2 weeks later. They're the people who only did this. Their names don't indicate anything to us. We don't know them. But I think they're listed by name because the conflict was with them as individuals. Now, of course, all Am Yisrael got involved, or else they wouldn't have been punished. They infected the people. So in the end, yeah, it's the sin of the Jews. But the cause of the sin is not mass rebellion. The cause of the sin is a lack of human spirit, which by definition is individual. Each person had his own lack of determination, and therefore the pasuk says Moshe Rabbeinu picked them, probably for a good reason, as it says kulam. It says why he picked them. He picked them because he thought they were the best people he could possibly pick in his opinion. Kol nasi bahem. It was the beginning of the pasuk. God said kol nasi bahem. And then it says, Kulam anashim rashei b'nei Yisrael hema. They were leaders in some sense. I think Moshe Rabbeinu apparently didn't choose that well, but maybe he chose the best he could find. They were chosen because of their qualities. They weren't necessarily hereditary princes, who other people just a few weeks before in Parashat Naso. They were chosen for their particular qualities, characteristics, and that was their failure. That because they failed in the end, having met the Ki'az Ha'am, having met the Yidei Ha'anak, and that's where they failed, and that's really what takes place. How do we know that takes place again? Because Kalev realizes that. What does Kalev attempt to do? He attempts to raise their spirit. Alon na'aleh. He's giving an enthusiastic drasha. Kalev is not speaking strategy. He's not saying, oh, I was there also and I found a good path, or they're not so tall. He doesn't argue with the facts. What does he simply do? He tries to rouse them. It's a rousing speech before battle. Kalev instinctively knows before they've even said anything, which is what's really interesting about Kalev. They haven't gotten to the point yet. They've just said, there are a lot of tall people there. And Kalev realizes where we're going, and he says, Alon na'aleh, we should rouse ourselves. Alon na'aleh. We should all rouse ourselves, and I guess he's speaking to them, especially you. V'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchala. And they say, no, lo nuchal lalot ki chazak hu mimenu. They're saying it's just impossible, can't be done. And Kalev is trying to get them to do, and he tries again. The verb used is vayahas Kalev et ha'am, an unusual word. Whatever it means to give a drasha. Vayas, he tried to spiritize them, I just made up that word, and to lahalhivotam, to enthusiase them, to inspire them. I no longer have to speak grammatically correct English. I just take a shoresh and let it fly out. He was trying to enthusiase them. Please write that down. Someday it'll become an English word, and you heard it from me. You heard it from me first. This explains the end. So far what I said is, I think it's pshat. It's not that dramatically true. I think everybody probably instinctively understood that it was more or less true. I just made it a little bit more, myself, I made it more dramatic than it needed to be. The next part is I think more, has a better knetch. And this explains the end of the Pasha. After it's all over, God has told them what's going to happen. They're all going to die in the desert. The 10 spies die immediately. And then God says, you're all going to die. 40 years, it'll take a long time, but none of you are going to Eretz Israel. And so the Jewish people have a very specific reaction. Vayidaber Moshe, pasuk perek Yudal, it's ready in the next perek, pasuk lametet. Vayidaber Moshe et ha'devarim ha'ele al bnei Yisrael, vayitablu ha'am me'od. He explains to them what's taking place, and there's a total change of heart. These people had been crying, bochim. They were crying in their out of despair, having the spies brought them to such a peak of depression. But after Moshe Rabbeinu tells them what's going to take place, vayitablu ha'am me'od. Pasuk mem, vayashkimu baboker, vaya'alu el rosh ha'ar leimor, hinenu ve'alinu el ha'makom asher amar Hashem, ki chatanu. What takes place over the night? The next morning they get up. They've changed their plans. True. They've changed their mentality. Few psukim earlier, not in their words, but in the words of the spies, lo nuchal la'alot. And here the people, some people, many people, vayashkimu boker, vaya'alu el rosh ha'ar leimor. They actually go up, but there's a mountain. There is a mountain, vaya'alu rosh ha'ar. So they're physically going up. And they say, hinenu va'alinu el ha'makom. There's a parallelism here. And again, I'm not sure what the geography looks like, but the Torah is telling us that they're walking up, but they're also saying, we will ascend el ha'makom asher amar Hashem, meaning Eretz Yisrael, not the mountain that's found in Kadesh Barnea, ki chatanu. Now, of course, we know what takes place. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, don't go. Al ta'alu. Switch of roles. Yesterday, they were saying, Lo duchal alot. Kaleb is saying, Alon na'aleh. Now they're saying, Bo na'aleh. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, Al ta'alu. This is I lost my count. I think it's the 9th poal Aliya in this Parasha. The entire Parasha is about Aliya. Ki ein Hashem b'kirkafem. So they disagree, and they pay no attention to him. Vaya'apilu la'alrot el rosh ha'ar. And they all die. The word vayapilu, difficult word. Rashi says it means lashon chozek. Here's a second pshat from the Tanchuma. Rashi says vayapilu means they made a special effort la'alot bahar. In other words, not only were they now making an effort, a concentrated, determined effort to overcome something, they were making it especially. It's vayapilu la'alot, is vayalu vayalu. It's alon na'aleh. It's they were great of spirit. But it doesn't succeed. So this end of the Parasha is meant to be the opposite of the first part of the Parasha. Kalev has said, so I'm going to now criticize Kalev, not personally, but one might think, these people took Kalev seriously. Kalev had said to them, Alon na'aleh, v'yarashnu ota. In modern terms, what did he say to them? In modern, I'm not giving this shiur has nothing to do with contemporary history. It has nothing to do with Aliya. It has nothing to do with other points of contemporary history, except that it does, but I'm not intending it to do that. So, but in contemporary history, what's the parallel of Alon na'aleh v'yarashnu ota? Im tirtzu ein zu agada. If you have enough spirit, you can succeed. That's what he said to them. He said, you're afraid? Oh, it's true, they're giants and you're midgets. Remember what they had said? V'chein hayinu be'einehem. We felt like we were grasshoppers next to them. They view us as grasshoppers, and we agree. That's what the Meriglim had said. So Kalev doesn't argue with that. What he's saying is, what difference does it make? Does he say, what difference does it make? Hashem yilachem lachem? No. He espoused the theory, a very great theory, a very ennobling, very enthusiastic, very inspiring theory. Alon na'aleh ki yachol nula. If you want to do aliyah, if you're determined and you believe in what you're doing, you can overcome, you're willing to overcome obstacles, you will overcome any obstacles. So the next morning, after a couple of messages from God, they get up and they say, Caleb was right. Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, no, it's very difficult. There are Knanim there are Amalekim there. It's not a good idea. What do they say to him? Tishma oznecha ma sheKalev omer. Vayapilu. We're determined. We believe in ourselves. Im tirtzu, ein zu agada. And what happens? Doesn't work. It's not so true. I'm not criticizing Herzog in any sense, but lo tamid im tirtzu. Defamim im tirtzu is adayin agada. So lo tamid olech. Moshe Rabbeinu tries to explain to them why that's going to take place. The tension is the same tension as to the conflict between not the facts. We're not talking about should you go up or should you go down. We're talking about the spiritual, meaning psychological determination that one brings to a certain action. Now, in the case of the Mapilim, there's a very interesting thing. They actually went up a mountain. It says so. Vayapilu larot el rosh hahar. There's got to be a mountain there. There has to be a rosh hahar. There has to be a summit. And vayerid ha'amaleki va'aknanei ha'yoshev baharahu. That particular mountain, I have no idea which mountain it was. Somewhere, for some strange reason, from where they were in Kadesh Barnea, the direction they're heading is to Eretz Yisrael, there was a mountain on the way. And Vayered, Pasuk Memhei, Vayered Amaleki Baknei Yoshev Baharahu, Vayakum Vayaktum Ad Choma. Mamish destroyed them. Was there really a mountain there? There has to be. The Torah says there was a mountain there. So I'm not allowed to wonder whether the Pasuk is true, but I cannot help wondering whether there was really a mountain there. Because are the Kanani and the Amaleki actually living on top of this mountain, as the Pasuk says so? Strangely enough, a few psukim beforehand, and for no particular reason, because it's not relevant to anything, you have the following pasuk. After God says to them that they're not going anywhere, and therefore they should turn around and go back. I'm looking for it. I'll find it really quickly. And someone has moved it in my siddur, in my chumash. In Perek Yud Dalet Pasuk Chafei, remember, without going into the details, God told the Jews twice that then once to Moshe and once he told them to say it again to the Jews that they're not going to make it. After the first time, it says none of them they're all going to die. Va'avdi Kalev Pasuk of Dalet Va'avdi Chalev Ekev Hayta Ruach Acheret Imo. I forgot to mention this. What was so special about Kalev? Why did God like Kalev so much that he would get a chelik in Eretz Yisrael and not die? Ruach acheret imo. The difference between Kalev and the other Meraglim is Ruach, his spirit, he believes in Aliya. By Melei Acharai, by Biotiv al-Aretz Sheba Ushabu B'Zaro V'Yoshena, Pasuk Chafei, Veha-Amaleki Veha-Knaani Yoshev Ba'emek. Machar Pnusu Lechem Ba'derech Yamsuf. The pshat is, you can't go this way because there were bad people there, so go back to Yamsuf. The Pasuk says that the Amaleki Behaknaani, these two people out of the many peoples who they could have mentioned, there were 7 peoples of Canaan, plus the Amaleki, that's already 8. Who knows, there was also some Midyanim in the area, maybe some other people, but Amaleki Behaknaani Yoshvim, in this Parsha, Yoshvim Ba'emek. 15 psukim later, it says that they want to go up, so they go up a mountain, Amaleki Vehaknaani, the same two groups, HaYoshev Bahar came down and killed them. What mountain? Who put a mountain there? They're in front of an Emek, apparently. That's why God said to them, go back to Yam Suf, because the Emek is dangerous. Just to complicate it a little bit more, when they first set out, the Meraglim, and Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them where to go, when they come back, they're describing the geography. And they say, Amalek Yoshev be'eretz hanegev. Hachiti b'Yebusi b'Mori Yoshev bahar. V'Knani Yoshev al hayam v'ayad hayaden. So just to confuse us a little bit more, people who live on mountains, in the beginning of the Parashat, I mean, this is not even a contradiction, but it's interesting. The people who sit on the mountains are Chiti Yebusi Mori. They're not involved in the second part of the story. Amalek lives in Eretz HaNegev, which is beyond the immediate mountain which you're in front of. It's in Eretz Yisrael. And the Knani, Bichlal, they live in the Shvela, Al Chof Hayam, V'al Hayarden. You can't get any lower than that in Eretz Yisrael, the two places. It's not a question. We all know if you read afterwards Sefer Shoftim and then Sefer Shmuel, there are Knanim all over the places. It's not as neat as... But in this parsha, it was very neat. Nobody should be on top of a mountain in front of the Ma'apilim. So again, I don't know exactly. I'm sure there was a mountain there, because the Torah couldn't describe it in any other way. But it's not the point. God put a mountain there in order to indicate what's taking place. They were willing to climb a mountain. It would be unfortunate for the story, not for the real life. It would be unfortunate for the story if when the Jews decided, against God's will, to charge into Eretz Yisrael, they were on a decline. That would mess up the dramatic point of the story. So God put a mountain there. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And then he took the Amalekim and the Knanim, those two people, which very clearly he indicated for no reason. I don't know why he even says it. Yoshvei ba'emek. The word emek here means not har. If it would be in some other context, it might just be a little valley. But when you have two psukim, 10 psukim apart, one says har and one says emek, they're opposites. So God then somehow took the people who were sitting in some kind of an emek nearby and put them on top of the har. Why? Because it's drama. He's writing a play. The Jews have to surge up the mountain, sweating, showing great determination, charging up the mountain, and they're going to determine that that's not the way to conquer mountains. Doesn't work. The Amaleki Uktani, who all of a sudden showed up there, simply came down and just wiped them out. Yaktum ad choma. Total destruction. Today we use the term ad choma to mean total destruction. Rashi's not so sure. The Targum Onkelos says that Choma is the name of a place because it says Ad Choma. It's a funny expression. The Targum Yonatan says it means what we think it means. It means that they were destroyed till they were destroyed. They were simply wiped out by these Amalekim. So I think here it's really clear. It's clear because there's no other way to read it, that even though there's a certain confluence between the actual geographic description, again, I don't think any pasuk here is saying that there wasn't a mountain. It's not a metaphor. But it's meant to be understood as a metaphor. There really apparently was a mountain, but the story is not about how difficult it is to climb up mountains. Maximum, you get a cable car. When I was young, we climbed Metzada. Nobody climbs Metzada anymore. You take the cable car. Moshe Rabbeinu could have made a cable car. That wasn't the point. The point was they had to climb a mountain, and they were willing to climb a mountain, and so therefore, that's what took place with the Ma'apilim. Now, the question is it true or is it not true? Is, in fact, the most important thing the spirit, as Kalev argued, or not? Why did Mapilim not succeed? So the answer is, and this I think we all understand is the answer, is that it's complicated. You need two things. It's a necessary ingredient. God is not going to laha'alot otam el Eretz Yisrael, hu ya'ale otam mi Eretz Mitzrayim. The Jews didn't leave Egypt. They were, in fact, dragged out of Egypt. Biyad chazaka ubizro netuya. God there, it's not nice to say these things about God, so theologically you have to say kavayachol lahavdil, but God made an exertion. God, in his great spirit, dragged the Jews, broke the bonds, and took them out of Egypt. They were passive. But he's not going to drag them into Eretz Yisrael. They have to conquer Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, we now understand what happened in the 40 years. There's a constant discussion theologically among Mefarshim, starting already in Chazal and later Mefarshim. You take the two biggest Chataim of the Midbar, Egel and Meraglim. Chet Egel, God forgave them. Chet Meraglim, end of the project. Okay, your children can go after Moshe Rabbeinu begs, but you guys are not going to go in. And we all have a little bit of a feeling that, Chet Egel is probably worse. I mean, it's about a Zara. Chet HaMeraglim was, they were a little bit chicken. So give them a speech, 2 speeches, 3 speeches. Somehow, why are they punished so severely? And the answer, I think, is the discussion is not about chet. In other words, it's not about actions. Discussion is about personality. And therefore, it struck Chazal very much that they were crying, bochim. The fact that they cried, Shivasa B'Tammuz. It would be B'chiyal de Dorot. The fact that they were crying upset God more than the fact that they were refusing. They had refused many times. Almost most of the tlunot of Sefer Shemot and Sefer Bamidbar include the line, why did you bring us here? Let's go back, in one way or another. They do this all the time. But they weren't crying. The crying meant that they were without spirit. And God said, I'm not going to take you because I'm not going to take you. Because I'm not going to take you. You have to go yourselves. You're not going to go. You don't want to go. So there's nothing to do with you. And therefore the gzeirah is that you will die here. Now, that's a necessary condition. You have to lichbosh et haaretz. You have to be willing to lichbosh et haaretz. The point of the sipur of the ma'apilim is that it's not a sufficient condition. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says very clearly what the problem is. When he tells them not to go, Lama zeh, pasuk mem aleph, perik yudam, pasuk mem aleph, Lama zeh atem ovrim et pi Hashem. So this could be understood simply, you're doing a chet, and you'll be punished. But the next line, Vehi lo titzlach, it won't succeed, al ta'alu ki ein Hashem bekir bechem. That's a theological statement, which maybe wasn't necessary. So God says don't do it, don't do it. And if you go against God's will, maybe he'll kill you. He's not saying that. He's saying you won't succeed. Vehi lo titzlach. Your theory is wrong. Because if God is not with you, not that God will kill you. The Amaleki will kill you. But if God is not with you, you don't have the strength to succeed. It's not true that the Spirit alone will conquer any obstacle. It's not true that determination conquers all. It's a necessary condition, but to succeed, you also need that your spirit should be the spirit of God, or spirit which is accompanied by God. And since God is not bekir bechem, he lo titzlach. I suspect now there might be a deeper point here. What happens when a person feels inspired? He's heard a good speech, he had a good Moshe Shmuz, and he goes out to conquer the world because it's the destiny, it's the tzav hasha'ah. What does he feel inside him? He feels his own spirit, and he generally, if he's half a religious person or a spiritual person, he thinks that he has Ruach Hashem b'tocho. We interpret that as being Ruach Hashem. In fact, again, in Sefer Shoftim, when people do great things, for instance, Shimshon is in my mind because I gave a shiur on Sunday. When Shimshon does great things, what does it say? But titzlach alav Ruach Hashem. So we say, it means Ruach HaKodesh, but what does it actually mean? It's psychologically the same thing as people feel all the time. When you feel inspired, uplifted, you're on the wings of history, that's Ruach Hashem. You've been inspired by something greater than yourselves. And so here he's saying to them, you feel inspired, but it's not real. And just the fact that you have a psychological determination, you've been brainwashed by one way or another, that's not the success. The success of Alon na'aleh is ki Hashem bekir bechem. And sometimes it's a mistake, and sometimes it's really false, which is why the Mapilim is such an interesting parsha historically in arguments till this day. They're constantly being dragged up the Mapilim to say as to whether or not the fact that certain people believe in their destiny, will they in fact succeed, or do we need to be, I'm talking secular terms now, do we need to be practical? Because the Mapilim, in fact, it's correct reading. The Mapilim are people who think that if they really are willing to make a great sacrifice, it has to succeed. And the Parsha says it doesn't have to succeed. What really has to succeed is, Hashem bekir bechem. Hashem will be bekir. If you don't have the Spirit, then God won't be there. God dwells on people with feelings of greatness. But if he chooses not to, because he doesn't like you today, then it won't work at all. And that's really what happens. And that's why he really thinks it says that they didn't just lose the war. They didn't have a chance. He just wiped them out. They didn't have a chance because they were just a couple of people walking up a hill, and the hill fell on their heads, despite what they thought was the great spirit involved. There was one other indication of this point. I think that's really the main point. I think is the difference between the original discussion and the discussion of the Mapilim. You might point out correctly that there is one sin in the Midbar other than the Meraglim, which is very personal and not national, and that of course is Korach. But Korach, that's really true. The people didn't get involved there. They were just spectators. Only afterwards, when they complained to Moshe Rabbeinu, did they get involved. But they were just asked to be spectators. That really was only Korach against here. Here you have a case where it's Am Yisrael against Moshe Rabbeinu, or against God, and it's still called personal because it's the personal spirit embodied by the Meraglim which do it. So I don't think that bothers me. But when God tells them that they're going to die, Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, goes and saves them, or at least saves their children. And what does he say? What's his argument? So we know Moshe Rabbeinu's arguments by heart. He always goes and says to them, B'yachil Hashem, Lama Yimu HaGoyim. He did the same thing in Chet HaEgel. It's a little bit different here. Moshe Rabbeinu says in Perek Yudal, Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayom Moshe Adonai, V'shamu Mitzrayim, Ki ha'elita b'chochacha et ha'am hazeh mikirbo. He says the Mitzvim will hear, which Mitzvim? Those who from their midst you ha'ela b'choach. Now you'll say to me, why does Moshe Rabbeinu have to explain here explicitly what I've just explained about the whole Parsha? The word lahalot always means b'choach. And the answer is because they're Mitzvim. They don't understand the good shiur. For them, you have to really explain it. But the Mitzvim, they were ha'eleta mehem b'choach. They really saw that God was dragging the Jews. B'choach yad chazakah. He took them out. And they will say, "B'amru el yoshvei haaretz hazot," meaning about these people. Ki ata Adonai b'kereb hamazeh et ayin b'ayin nera ata Hashem me'anacha u'meid alehem ba'anan nanu ota lechem tzahem yomah v'layla v'imata et am hazeh ki shachad b'mur hagoyim asher shemu et shemach alemo mibuti yacholet Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu says the Mitzvim saw how you could drag the people out of Mitzrayim. Therefore, what are they going to conclude? That God was incapable of. The powerful people of Canaan were stronger than God. That's a classic Chil Hashem argument. Va'ata yigdal na koach Hashem kasher dibarta leimo, and he quotes the Gimel Midot, and he says, Slach na lam hazeh, v'yom Hashem v'chasher nasata la'am hazeh mimitzrayim b'adheina. What did Moshe Rabbeinu ask God to do? Kasher nasata la'am hazeh mimitzrayim b'adheina. He said, bring them into Eretz Yisrael the way you took them out of Mitzrayim. Because otherwise, who will the Egyptians blame for the defeat of the Jews? He'll blame you. You were powerful enough to defeat us, but you weren't powerful enough to defeat the Canaanim. My argument is that God doesn't plan, at least not in the visible way, to defeat the Canaanim. The Jews have to defeat the Canaanim. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Nasata, just as you've carried them till here, keep carrying them. Okay, they're weak-willed people. They don't have the spiritual fortitude to enter and conquer Eretz Yisrael. That's been proven. But that's not a problem. So, second rate. They won't do it. You'll do it. Nasata. Carry them forward. And God says, yes or no. Salachti kidvarecha v'ulam chamani b'yamadei chvod Hashem et kol haaretz kichon Hashem orid kvodi b'totei v'asher astiv mitzrayim v'dbar. They saw my power and they're not willing to carry on, so they're not going to do it. I'll have to wait for the next generation. It's part of the same argument. In the end, God says, of course I could carry them. But that we're missing the point here. They have to carry themselves. The Pasha is about the strength of a man to carry himself forward and upward. The strength of a man to carry himself forward and upward. And the Mapilim is about how you need more than that. But nonetheless, it's the crucial explanation of what takes place in this Pasha as opposed to all the other Parshiyot that deal with the complaints and the rebellions of the Jews in the desert.